Welcome to another edition of Yorkshire Kris Weekly. It's an absolutely gorgeous morning here in Yorkshire. Beautiful blue skies and just light clouds and lots of sunshine. Feels nice and warm and spring-like. And what I'm doing at the moment is just cutting back the old leaves of this Cycas revoluta, which has been in the ground all winter and had a cushion over it to keep out the cold. And by cutting back these leaves, it will promote a new flush of leaves from the centre in probably about June, July time. And then it'll have beautiful green fronds again, which will last for a couple of years, because it doesn't always grow new leaves each year. Sometimes it misses out a year or two. But as you can see, these leaves have gone straw coloured yellow because of the cold and because they're old now. So hopefully we'll get a nice new flush in spring. So here's what's coming up in today's programme.
We wake up the hiniba bananas and pot them up. We sow lots of types of seeds, including zinnias and ericinus. We see if a tender type of tree fern, the Cyathea, survived the winter. We cut back various grasses, including Miscanthus and Rondodonax. We sort out the flooding issue caused by exceptional rain and the pond. And finally, we uncover more plants that were covered in straw in winter.
Now it's time to wake up the Ensete hiniba bananas, and as you can see, I just store them bare root, just laid or standing up mainly by the side inside the greenhouse. There's no soil on the roots or anything, so I'm going to clear these off because they don't look very happy at the moment, but I'll assure you that they are totally fine, and I'll show you that now. So this is the bananas. Now I've taken off some of the outer leaves. You can see the tops are starting to grow already. The bases are still nice and dry, and I would say about 75% of the bananas have got through winter. There's a quarter that didn't because they were too wet. When I've been watering other plants and water has been running down the side of the greenhouse, they've rotted off. So this is a rotten one. Basically it's just got all mushy. You can smell it as well. And if it's all really wet and sweating, you know it's rotted through. You can see the centre of that is brown as well rather than white. That's another sign it's rotted through, so that one's gone. But we've got a lot here that survived. So I'll pot all these up in just basically compost. Just using general compost, quite light and airy. Only using a bit of this in the base of a pot, and then using a pot that's just a little bit bigger than the root ball or the base of the banana, and then I'll leave that in the greenhouse for a few more weeks while it roots, and then I'll plant it out in May. That's the Ensete bananas. And now they are all potted up with just a bit of compost around them, all trying to grow already. And it's nice and warm in the greenhouse now with the sun shining in the day, so these will hopefully root over the next few weeks and they'll be planted out in May. One thing I will add is the compost I've used, I didn't know when I bought it, is awful stuff, but hopefully they'll be able to still root into it, these bananas. I won't be buying that brand again. Anyway, that's the hinibas. Let's move on to something else.
So here in this part of the garden, I've left it completely as it was last summer to let the plants die down. So I've got the old annual bed in here. This was the ricinus from last year, and I'll be sowing the new seeds of that later on. But just right next to me, this is the honey spurge, or Miscanthus major, which many years grows and keeps green over winter and then resprouts from the top. But often when you do that, it gets quite a tall, straggly plant and then flowers. I like the nice new fresh leaves, and luckily winter's given us a hand this year by killing all the top growth. So what I'm going to do is just cut this back to the base, and what will happen then is we'll get lots of new growth right from the ground, right from the centre, and it'll be really fresh, vibrant, greeny, bluey green leaves, really nice serrated edges to the leaves, and that'll cover this area here and will be a really nice foil to the flowers that will be growing in front of them. So I'll just continue cutting away all the old stalks.
So down here I've just uncovered this Aloe polyphylla, which is, a lot of people think it's a tender plant, but actually it's got through this winter with no damage at all. It's also called the spiral aloe because the leaves spiral out from the centre and get this beautiful pattern. So if you look from straight above and look down into the plant, you can see the wonderful spiral shape. Now this is uncovered, and it'll stay like this till autumn again. Hopefully it'll grow bigger and bigger, and eventually it will flower. Really pleased that this has got through winter. So it's time to sow some more seeds now. The first lot will be the ricinus. So we've got the ricinus zanzibarensis mixed, and the seeds for those look like this. Quite big fat seeds, and they're shiny, and ideally you can soak these for 24 hours before sowing. But what I'm going to do is just really soak the compost that we're going to sow these into, which will do the same thing really. And we're also going to be sowing 3 more types today. We're going to be sowing the Tropolium peltasthorum Spitfire. We're going to be sowing flowers, so Zinnia elegans Super Yoga Dark Red, so lots of red daisies. And we're also going to be sowing another ricinus. This is Carmencita, which is a large leaved one. And again, the seeds are very similar to the ones I've just shown you in this seed tray. Now the ricinus need sort of bigger individual modules and cells than some of the other smaller seeds, so there'll be 1 seed sown in each of these in sowing compost. So let's do that now. So we're going to put 1 seed in each of the cells, and we're going to put them in about 1 centimetre or so deep underneath the sowing compost. And if I've got any spare seeds left over, there's 15 cells in this seed tray, I'll put an extra 1 in each cell. And then once they germinate, I will keep the strongest seedling and nip off the weaker seedling. That's if they all germinate. And I need these bigger cells because they are quite big, vigorous plants, a bit like runner beans and peas with big seeds. They quickly grow big seedlings. So once we've finished putting these in, we'll then give these a really good water so the compost is really wet, and this will go into the heated propagator. And then we'll remember, because these are really poisonous seeds, we'll wash our hands really well afterwards. just to avoid any potential issues with these seeds in the compost. And we've got one seed left over, so let's put one extra in that top cell. So these are the zinnia seeds. As you can see, they're quite large. You can handle them individually, but they're very light as well. So these will be surface sown pretty much into a seed tray, and the seedlings themselves do not like root disturbance, so they will go into individual cells that will grow on for several weeks before planting out into their final positions in the garden in late May. So let's sow them now. So we'll aim to put about 3 seeds in each of these cells, and once they've germinated we will just keep the strongest seedling. Now I've got lots and lots of seeds in this packet, so far more than just one seed tray will hold. So the rest of them will sprinkle about in the garden, and hopefully they'll germinate and flower where they fall. But these, because they're pretty thin light seeds, you know, they're quite big, we'll sprinkle little tops potting compost over the top of these just to hold them in place, and then these will be watered well and again put into the propagator, which is getting very full because lots of seed trays in there. So one plant I've not uncovered yet is the Cyathea tree fern, which is a tender tree fern which really shouldn't survive in my Yorkshire garden, but we have protected it with these rubber tyres and some fleece. I've got no idea if it's alive or dead, but let's find out. So I'll have to take off the tyres. There's some straw in here, so let's just move that off, remove all this, and we'll see what we've got. I've still got a little bit of green on this leaf, but that's not really important because we want new leaves this year. There we go, there's the trunk of it. You can see it's about 15-20 centimetres of trunk. And then here, look at that, can I have a close-up of that? That is a new crosier, and as you can see, if you scrape that back, it's nice and green there, which means this will unfurl and new leaves will form, so this plant doesn't look dead. That is really fantastic to see that get through this bad winter we've had. So now it's uncovered, got some air to it, some sunshine, it will grow away nicely. If we do get frosts later in April or May, then I will have to cover it over again because it will blacken the leaves. But that has done really well over winter, and it will produce leaves well over 1 metre long, and it grows much quicker than a Dixonia antarctica, like the ones just behind it over here. Really happy with that. So if you remember last week, we cut back these Musabaju bananas, and now if you look at the top of this one, you can see that it's pushed out a little bit of growth. And if we move down to this one down here, that's also pushed out about 3 or 4 centimetres of growth. So these are alive, and new leaves will unfurl from the centre of all these stalks over the next few weeks. So they are alive. So this tall grass that was well over 2 metres tall when it was growing has stood all winter with its straw-coloured stems, and it's acted as a bit of a barrier to the rest of the garden, and it looked really nice when it was frosted. It was a Miscanthus grass, this Miscanthus giganteus crossed with Sacculiflorus. It's time to cut it back to the ground, so I'm just going to get my secateurs and get into the ground and just cut it off at the base as close as I can to the ground, and then what will happen is new foliage will quickly shoot up in May, really quickly, so by June it'll be up to 2 metres tall. So I'll just continue going across and cutting these down. And another large grass that we need to cut down is a Spanish reed or a Rondodonax, and this grows almost like bamboo, really thick stems that are actually quite hard to cut through, as you can see. But we'll cut through all these down to the ground and then new stems will grow. You can actually leave the old stems in, and what happens is you get lots of little side branches growing off with lots of like leaves, like a bushy sort of plant, rather than new stems coming from the ground. But I like to cut them all to the ground, and then you get all new stems, and this goes really high. This is over 3 meters tall, and it does that really quickly over a couple of months, much like a bamboo does. But the good thing is it doesn't spread like a lot of bamboos. It keeps to a clump and slowly grows outwards. And in a few months' time we'll come back and look at this plant and you can see what it looks like with the new stems. So last week I showed you some Colcasia that had been covered in straw over winter. And here's some more Colcasia. And you can see they're already unfurling their green leaves. And there's lots and lots here. I'm going to uncover this full bed and see what else we can find ready to grow away for summer. So we're going to remove all this plastic that was keeping some of the straw dry, and all this here. This was keeping all that plastic down, and we'll lift up this board. Let's see what's underneath. Wow, okay. Lots and lots of straw. So let's have a look what's under the straw. If I just move back some, oh, look at that. There's lots and lots of pink chinas. Can you see all these? And they're all alive, like we uncovered last week. So we'll continue taking all this away, and we'll reveal what's under here. And now I've cleared a lot of this bed. You can see loads of Colcasias are alive and growing. Got the gingers under there as well. I've also got the Persicaria red dragon that's growing under there. And there will be some gingers and cannas in there as well. So the straw protection has definitely worked. Even though it's got wet and soggy, it hasn't meant the plants have rotted. They've just carried on growing, probably from the extra heat of the rotting of the straw. I would never use hay to do this because you'll get millions of grass seeds coming up, but straw's not bad. After last week's edition, last Sunday, on the Monday we had lots of snow for a couple of hours. And that, combined with all the rain that followed, meant all this area, all the newly dug areas behind me, all this flooded. So there's water standing all across where the palm trees are by the fence. The bases of several of these were underwater. And all down here, down towards the greenhouse, this was all about 5 to 10 centimetres of water all in this area. Now the reason for that is obviously it's been a wet winter, all the sudden snowfall and then all the rain afterwards, lots of surface water, and it's all gathered here because this is the lowest part of the garden now. Because at the far end of the garden, if we look down there, that is all raised beds, and all the water from the end of the garden and where the big Drabea palm tree is, all that water flows underneath the decking in channels down towards the pond. So we'll now just go over to the pond area and we'll see an issue over there. What this lower end of the pond is slightly lower than the rest of the pond, so when the water overflows, it overflows towards me and then down, around and under the jungle hut, which is where all the water collects then further down the garden. So we need to solve this problem, and what I'm going to do in this area is I'm going to build up a little bank here stop the water travelling underneath the jungle hut. And then obviously the beds that we dug over further down the garden, we're going to fill in with topsoil, stop it that being the lowest point of the garden, and then hopefully we won't get lots of water collecting in there when we do have exceptional rainfall events. So this does show that on this part of the garden everything worked correctly, where all the water flowed underneath the decking off the raised beds and into the pond. But what we're going to stop now is the water further travelling this way by building up the pond area. Now there's lots of plants we're going to grow from tubers and rhizomes. Most of them are the dahlias, so we're going to grow these beautiful sunshine dahlias with a black foliage and their red, orange and yellow flowers. We've got a few packs of those. We're also going to grow xanthidicias, and this is the Xanthidicia calla green goddess, which is quite a large calla lily with the white and green leaves. We've got some Peruvian lilies, the Alstroemeria. Not grown these before. They can apparently take over large areas. Quite vigorous plants, but beautiful flowers. And it's not all for the exotic garden. We've also got some shallots that we're going to eat later this year. And finally, we've got some red dahlias. These are the Bishop of Canterbury, again with the dark foliage. These are from Mexico and Central America, and these will be planted in front of all the large foliage plants in the garden. Got a few packs of those, and what we're going to do is we're going to put these into sort of large pots, just general purpose potting compost, water them and put them in the greenhouse, and then in a couple of weeks the new shoots will come up, and then in May and June we'll plant these out in the garden. Now a few weeks ago I sowed several seeds, including these Tithonia and these Spanish flag. Got the Kiloyomi down there, they've germinated, and also the slow germinating Dutchman pipes, which you can see a couple have now germinated. And now I need to take these out of here just to make some room for the ricinus and the other seeds that we're going to put in here. Thank you for watching Yorkshire Kris Weekly. Join me next time, we'll be doing more in the garden.
Cut the hiniba bananas and pot them up. We sow lots of types of seeds, including zinnias and ricinus. We look at a tender tree fern and see if it survived the winter, a Cyathea. We cut back various grasses, including Rondodonax. We look at the flooding issue that we've suffered this week in the garden and how we can rectify that by amending the pond area. And we lift back more straw and see which plants have survived the winter.